I did my project on the Industrial Workers of the World, or IWW for short. Some general info on the IWW is that they began in Chicago in 1905. On 1923, there was the largest peak of the IWW group, where 40,000 people joined from all across America. They also did not agree with companies electing a manager for the job. They believe that workers should be able to elect a manager that they all agree on and is the best candidate for the job. They wanted to get rid of the employing class altogether. In the early 1900s of the IWW, 7 years after the start, in 1912, there was about 25,000 total members in the IWW. The first gathering was on June 24th in 1905, and this was called the Industrial Union Convention, which was the first ever meeting that the IWW ever had, and it was the beginning of the Industrial Workers of the World. The Industrial Workers of the World also did not agree with World War I. They did not want the U.S. to get involved in World War I, and they did not want to fight in the war as soldiers. The government was sending the working class to war when no one in the working class even wanted the war to take place in the first place. The IWW believed that going to war just forced poor workers to fight in battle and made rich people more rich from the war. The workers would rather protest against the war and fight against America rather than for them in the war that they didn't approve of. The government used the war against the IWW by raiding all of their meetings, and they confiscated a lot of material. Over thousands of material was taken down by raids that the government had on the IWW meetings. Then in the mid-1900s, around the year 1924, the IWW had split into two different groups because of issues they had, and they couldn't agree on certain things. They split into Easterners and the Westerners. 6 years later, there was a drop in members of the IWW. It went all the way down to about 10,000 members in around 1930. The government has classified the IWW as a communist-led organization during the mid-1900s. Also in around like the 1500 era, there was a second Red Scare in the U.S. The Red Scare is the fear of communism influencing society and possibly getting into the government. After this second scare, it really depleted the IWW to the lowest membership it has had since the first creating in 1905. Now at this point in time, it is not looking good for the IWW being able to stay alive. After the war, then came the Civil Rights Movement. Basically, the Civil Rights Movement and all the anti-protest wars rejuvenated the IWW. Also, with all the college kids in the anti-war protests, that also got more members to join the IWW. This was in around the 1960s-ish era. One of the more current things that the IWW has done was that they have participated in protests for the war in Iraq and Afghanistan currently. They've also had many boycotts for sweatshops, where people are paid terrible money, way under minimum wage, in terrible working conditions. Also, they have a lot of kids that are working in the sweatshops that aren't old enough and should not be working in these terrible conditions. In 2006, the IWW headquarters was moved to Cincinnati, where it has been in Chicago for all of the years prior, but it was moved back to Chicago in 2010. It only stayed about 4 years in Cincinnati because it wasn't doing that well. Also in 2006, there was a case involving Coca-Cola in Colombia. It was assumed that a Coca-Cola bottling company hired U.S. military to murder 9 union leaders that worked for this bottling company, and the IWW boycotted many Coca-Cola products during this time. Also, there's not just the IWW in the US, there's also the IWW in many other countries, such as the UK, Germany, Canada, and Australia, and a couple more. When the IWW, at the time of World War II, there was 2 active branches in London, which the IWW associated with, and that was the first one that was not in the US. Also, Canada had early IWW members in history. It was one of the first countries to have IWW after the US first founded it in 1905. And some random facts is that in 1905, only about 5% of workers belonged to unions, which is a very low percent since there are many more in unions today. Also, there's a black cat symbol, which was for the IWW. The black cat symbol is supposed to signify sabotage. It was created by Ralph Chaplin, who was a member of the IWW. Also, not many people know that the IWW published their own newspaper. They had their own circulation of paper that went around to IWW members. Their motto was, "Injury to one is an injury to all." So they basically worked as a team. If one person was injured, then it hurt the entire group at one time.